challenge rooms. They're like Omega rooms, but much, much, much more deadly. So what we're going to do is we are going to have a look at all of the different challenge rooms and see exactly how you should be looting them. And just like the Omega room, we're going to do them in order of rarity, starting with the most common one, the X marks the spot room. Now the X marks the spot room is kind of strange because it's kind of halfway between a challenge room and an Omega room. When you go to the middle of the X and then dig all the way down, you'll eventually find yourself in a little room. Now when the walls of the room disappear, you'll find yourself in one of two rooms. The first one is the one that you hope for, and it has just ornate chests absolutely everywhere and absolutely no mobs. So it's basically like a really cool Omega room. With this one, just simply go around, loot all the ornate chests, be careful for traps, but you should be pretty much good to go, and it's a nice simple challenge room. However, there is also the other option. And in the other room, when you dig down, you're going to be met by the same bedrock room, but when the walls disappear, you're in for a little surprise. A very dark room full of lots and lots of mobs. And be aware as well that the mobs also spawn on the top floor, so even if you do manage to get yourself out of the 1x1 hole that you've made, there's going to be a bunch of mobs ready to get you. So you need to get out of there very, very quickly, or you're going to die even faster. Speaking of dying even faster, how about we add some TNT onto all of the mob spawners? That's right, our second room is the Wild West room, and this is even harder than it used to be in 1.16. As you run around this room, you're going to see a ridiculous amount of gilded chests. Like, seriously, they are literally everywhere. But you also have this TNT to worry about, because if you accidentally hit one, well, say goodbye to your life. Now you will also find a bunch of spawners all around the room. A lot of them are concentrated actually inside the buildings, but you will find mobs spawning all around you. You will also find these giant minecarts that can be full of sand or gravel, but unless you actually need those blocks, it's not worth mining out because there's no hidden treasure in there. At least, not in the many times that I've wasted a bunch of time digging all of these out. Now, don't forget you can also find treasure chests on the top of these buildings as well, so make sure you are checking everywhere, but just be a little bit careful. Now, there are a few different variations of the Wild West room, including a train one and a cool cactus one. I'm not going to spoil any more than that for you, but they all function basically the same. You need to find the gilded chests, avoid dying to the TNT, and avoid dying to the mobs. Now for room number 3, we are back at the village room. And there's been quite a few changes to the village room. Inside these buildings, you can find yourself both some chests and some spawners. But honestly, it's not even really worth your time looting these buildings. The real fun is underground. Now you can either dig straight down, or you can find these trapdoors inside different buildings, and they lead you to the underground sections of this room. And here you'll find a ridiculous amount of living chests. You'll find these living chests scattered all the way around this underground area, but just be a little bit careful because mobs can spawn pretty much anywhere that you find these living chests. This room is going to be one of your best options for getting living chests in the entire game because there are an absolute ton down here. Just be aware though, there are also an absolute ton of spawners. As you can see, there are 4 within a few blocks of each other in just this little section alone. Now, if you get really lucky, you will find a very special room, and that is this beauty. You'll immediately know it because it's got the lava and it's also got an end portal frame. All you need to do in here is stick the last Eye of Ender in and you will get a bunch more living chests. You can then just grab all of the loot from these chests, and you should end up with a really good amount of star essence. Living chests are the best to get yourself knowledge stars. If you are wanting to maximize your efficiency in this room, the best thing to do is just dig down a little bit until the bottom renders in on the minimap, see if there is a portal room, and if there is, just make yourself a little tunnel over there to avoid most of the mobs. You can then just block yourself in this little room to avoid any mobs, and then deal with the chest once you're here. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way, and just run around like crazy and deal with all of the mobs. Alright, so it's time for room number 4, and honestly, this one isn't worth doing. If you see this next room, you should probably just avoid it, and that is the factory room. As you can see, things get a little bit wild in here very, very quickly, and there is not a chance that I am going into survival mode in this room. So the first thing that's going to cause you some problems is this thing in the middle. This is just a survival spawner, but it is entirely surrounded by vault glass, and if we remove some of these, you'll see this is also vault bedrock. And if we do go into survival mode, you'll see that these cannot be broken at all, which means that there is nothing that you can do in this room in order to stop mobs spawning. So what do you get as payment for actually going into this room and dealing with an endless amount of mobs? Well, if you go into these buckets, you'll see there are some compressed blocks. And that's it. That's all you get, is a few compressed blocks. Now, you guys know I love compressed blocks, but there is no chance that I am going to deal with this room in order to just get some easily obtainable compressed blocks. That being said, I will show you that inside these things, these little crane things, there's compressed blocks in there. Pretty much every one of these buckets is filled with different blocks and compressed blocks, and even these ones with the kind of metal grating, they're just filled with compressed blocks too. And now that they've removed compressed blocks from a lot of recipes in the vault as well, it's really not worth your time being here. So let's leave and go on to our next one, which is 100% worth your time. This one is the Crystal Caves, and you can already see from behind me why this one is worth doing. Just look at all of those beautiful vault ores, and of course, a spawner. Now, the great thing about this room is that every single spawner is an ambush spawner, which means that they will just burn themselves out and you don't need to go and break them with a pickaxe. Which means that you can just run around, grab all of the spawners, make sure they're all destroyed by themselves, and then clear all of the mobs out before you start looting this room. And once you've cleared out those mobs, you can basically just go around and loot all of these ores without any problems at all. You'll find an absolute ton of Larimar and Beniatites, and you'll also find occasionally the rare player gems as well. Just mine them out, and then you'll see this is actually the second best way in order to get gems in the game. The only thing better is the Mine Room Omega Room. Now, it's really important to check everywhere in this room because you've got ores in the ceiling, you can have little pockets of ores hidden away in corners, and there's even pathways down that will lead you to even more ores. If you see this room, you want to be absolutely just stripping everything from it, get all of the ores that you possibly can before you move on, because this room is absolutely fantastic. Also, have you noticed the pattern yet? First off, we went to the X marks the spot room and got ornate chests. We then went to the Wild West room and got gilded chests. We did the village room and got living chests. We went to the factory room and got compressed blocks. And then finally, we've gone to the Crystal Caves and got ores. That's right, each one of the challenge rooms has one specific type of loot. And there are 7 types of loot and 7 challenge rooms. Honestly, that's fantastic game design, and if you want a very specific type of loot, you know whether or not you want to be looting that room before you even enter it. Alright, penultimate room time, and this one is one of my favourite rooms. I absolutely love the design and the function of this room, because it's got a dragon in it. How cool is that? And of course, what would you get in a dragon's lair except for treasure? Lots and lots of coin treasure. Now, this room has a similar problem to the factory room in that there are spawners scattered around, and inside here is an unbreakable spawner which you're going to need to deal with. The easiest way to deal with it is to use a water bucket, and assuming that when you watch this the water bucket hasn't been removed, it will make this room incredibly easy for you. It does mean though that you are going to need to loot these ore piles really quickly and actually avoid mobs if you're not using the water bucket strategy, because they can get really dangerous. Now, I've only done this little tiny corner here, but I already have 3 stacks of bronze. That's how powerful this room is, and if you clear out this entire room, you are not going to need vault bronze for basically anything for a very long while. I'd highly recommend looting this room as much as you possibly can. Just make sure that you don't die, because the mobs can hit very hard. Now, unlike 1.16, there aren't any chests underneath the dragon. You basically only have these piles of coins. Like I said, each room has one type of loot, so this one is the coins room. There's not really much more to say about this room, you just need to mine up all of the coins. However, I would strongly recommend bringing a crafting table with you, because then you can actually turn all of this vault bronze into silver and gold and save yourself a bunch of inventory space. So for those of you keeping track, we have one chest and one more challenge room to go. And I'm pretty sure most of you have seen this room, even though it is the rarest challenge room. It's the dig site room, but not the yellow dig site room that we looked at in the last video. This is the normal sand dig site room. Now, the main difference between this one and the golden one is as you start breaking the sand in this room, you'll see that you've still got all of the wooden chests like before, but you also have the mob spawners as well. And that means that you can end up getting yourself into a little bit of a predicament if all of the mobs end up catching you while you're looting here. Although thankfully the spawners are breakable, unlike in the last few rooms. Something to note as well is that this room is not divided into 4 sections like the other one is, because there's massive holes that link the 2 areas, so you can't just use that to escape the mobs. I'm going to give you similar advice on this room to what I did in the Omega dig site room, which is that if you have a very good way to clear it out, whether that's using a torch method or vein miner, then you're going to be able to deal with this room fairly easily as long as you are breaking the spawners. However, if you don't have a way to deal with all of the sand, this room is not going to be worth doing. While there are a fair few wooden chests, there's not nearly as many as there are in the Omega room, and on top of that, wooden chests are fairly easy to get in just normal POIs. Now, hopefully this guide's helped you out, and if it has, make sure to leave a like on the video, or just if you liked the video, give it a like. Make sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Thanks for watching, everyone. I've been Hellfire Mage, and I will see you next time.